You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex bonus episode, The Journey to Starting Breakup Coach Dorothy LLC. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, Breakup Coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Welcome, Bravehearts. If you are new to the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. I love you and adore you already. Please do not start with this episode. Especially if you're going through a breakup or a divorce, please start with episodes 1 through 5 and then venture your way throughout whatever episodes make sense for you. I just want to make sure that you make the most use of your time, and this is more of a podcast about myself and my business journey, not really having a lot to do with breakups. The reason I'm talking about this today, and I'm making it a bonus episode because it's not specifically related to breakups. However, this is Breakup Coach Dorothy, so it was all founded on a breakup, which is fun. The most recent round of the Get Over Your Ex program, 26 beautiful, wonderful humans who just all got over their ex. It was a beautiful experience. They had a lot of questions about business. Some of them were coaches. Some of them wanted to be coaches. Some of them want to start their own company. Whatever that looks like for them, amazing, awesome. I'm so pumped for each of them. And they wanted me to talk about my journey becoming a business owner. And it's come up a couple of times, and I've had a lot of clients who turn into coaches, and I thought maybe it would be useful to do this episode. And then I also had some individuals reach out saying they wanted to get on the phone and chat with me about my journey. And I thought, what a better way to address this than just creating an entire episode talking about it. So this is going to be probably a longer episode than usual. And I'm just like riffing here and exploring, and there's no real structure to this. So if you're not about that, this might not be the episode for you, and that's totally fine. I want to just start with a rough outline because I actually asked Jenny, beautiful Jenny, who asked the original question in the Get Over Your Ex program, to provide me with some questions. So I've got questions that she had. I offered a Q&A within Instagram, and so I have questions that other people had. But I thought what would be better to just start out the episode with is a rough outline of what this looked like from start to now. I'm not going to say start to finish because we're not even close to finish. This is just the beginning. But now I started my business. Actually, I'll take you back even further. I went through my breakup 2016, right? 2016. And I found thought work in I found out about coaching in 2016 from the Jen Sincero book, You Are a Badass. I didn't really know what coaching looked like, what it meant, but I was very intrigued. I hired a coach, and I started looking at thought work and finding thought work, I think in 2017. And then I really went in 2018. And then at the beginning of 2018, I signed up for the Life Coach School, which is a life coach certification. And I got certified. I signed up for it in February. The certification was like a 6-day in-person event that took place in September. I did a practicum, and I was officially certified by December of 2018. Before I ever even got certified, I started creating coaching programs. My very first coaching program was called Find Your Inner Alien. I sold it for $50. And you would have one-on-one weekly coaching sessions with me, plus a workbook situation for 12 weeks. So insane to me. And we worked on finding your inner alien, leaning into learning about yourself. I pretty much just took all the tools that I was learning and helped other people use them. It was super fun. I had a great time with that. And then I wanted to go get certified to be able to use the model, which is it is one of the primary tools that I help people use when it comes to organizing your thoughts. It's a beautiful awareness tool that all of my Brave Hearts Learn inside out and backwards inside of my program. But the model was originally created by Brooke Castillo at the Life Coach School. Therefore, I went to the Life Coach School to get my certification. Loved it. I personally had a beautiful experience with that. So once I finished my coach certification at the end of 2018, they helped me, kind of set up the business all of 2019. And what that looked like for me was they wanted me to pick a niche. They helped me, how do I create a message? I think one of the first activities we had was writing 30 blogs in 30 days to try to find my voice. And it was all about learning, how do I speak to my people? How do I talk about the problems they're experiencing and help them know that I can help them solve those problems? I created a variety of tools. So at the end of 2018, I already started creating the Get Over Your Ex program, which at the time was simply a workbook, one video, and weekly coaching calls with me for 12 weeks. And the order of stuff is very different. It looks so different now, obviously, based off of everything that I've learned and how many people have gone through it. My first client was a beautiful individual who still works with me to this day, which I love. I think is so much fun. But long story short, that program has now transformed into the beast that it is today. But in the very beginning, I remember learning how to find my voice through writing blogs. The primary method that I was taught was to use Facebook ads. And so I would create things that we call freebies that led to a Facebook ad that led to getting someone on my email list that then had them go to a consultation call where we'd have a consult. We'd figure out if we wanted to work together, and then they would sign up as a one-on-one client. That is a very simplified version of what actually happened. I tried so many different things. I tried a breakup first aid kit. I had all kinds of different workshops and tools and, one-page PDFs that I'd provide people. I did everything under the sun. There was at one point in my first year in 2019 where I would go to a breakup support group based in Boston and I would teach things to them for free. I would meet with whoever showed up there and provide any insight people wanted from a breakup coach. I would do workshops in my apartment complex on a whiteboard. I would stand on the curb, you guys, the curb, with a board that said free breakup advice. When I say that I did everything, I fucking did everything. And I tried so many different things, and I was taught all about failing and epic fails, and I would write down 25 things I could do that quarter and fail at, but it got me closer and closer to where I wanted to be. So that was 2019. I tried all kinds of things. I did all kinds of things to learn and try to fill my practice. That was my main goal was to, I guess my very first goal was to create enough one-on-one clients where I could leave my job. So in 2018, I worked for a data analytics company doing consulting. I then picked up a side job for a planner company doing production. Well, actually, I first did an executive assistant job with them as a side thing in correlation to my data analytics job to be able to pay for life coach certification because I did not have anywhere near the amount of money to do that. I then got to the place where I could at that point I did data analytics job. I had planner side gig job and my coaching side gig job. And then at the end of that year, the beginning of 2019, I'm not sure of the timing, I went full-time with the planner company. They asked me to come on full-time, and I dropped my data analytics job, did full-time with the planner company. So then I was full-time with planner company, and then I also had my coaching business. And I remember there was a whole conversation with my coach, Jill Wright, who is still my coach and probably will always and forever be my coach, where I talked about like, I want this to be my full-time thing. And so we stopped talking about the Breakup Coach Dorothy as being a side gig, but that was my full-time job. And it was a whole like mental shift for me to start introducing myself as Breakup Coach Dorothy. Many people would be like, hey, how are you? What's your name? I'd be like, my name's Dorothy. I do data analytics. Oh, and I happen to be a breakup coach. But I started changing that and I started saying, my name's Dorothy. Nice to meet you. And I am a breakup coach, even though I was still working the planner company. And so that was like a really interesting, fascinating, fun thing to do. And it was like, it really got me in the groove of this is me. Like, this is my full-time job. This is what I do. And by June or July of 2019, my job at the planner company had been replaced with a company in China, and they no longer needed me. So I was let go, and that was like a really scary transition for me because I still wasn't to the place where I was like making the same amount that I was in my full-time job, and I was working, but at the same time I was working like 80 hours a week. I was working like, the 40 hours a week it took from my planner job, and then 40 hours a week in my coaching business. I was working all of the time. I thought that I would have all this time back because that job fell away, but really I just filled it with more coaching work. I still couldn't, I went through an entire phase of working with coaches to help me reduce the amount of time that I worked. I was working 80 hours or 60 hours or 50 hours, doing all of the things I could possibly do to try to make this work. And so mid 2019, I'm on my own and I'm trying to figure this all out. Leading up to that, like I said, I was writing blogs. I had gone through a phase of doing weekly Facebook Lives. And I did that for a long time. And then finally, I think it was mid 2019, I decided I wanted to do the podcast, the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast. And I did that because I remember searching for How Do You Get Over Your Ex in a podcast format. There was nothing there. I wanted to create it, and I wanted to create it in a way that was totally different than anything anyone else had ever done, because I'm not really a chatty Cathy. I don't like to listen to people just to listen to what they're up to. I genuinely love, I have a question and I want my question answered in the most efficient way. So that was the way I formatted my podcast. Of course, I do these bonus episodes, which are not like that at all. But I wanted to be able to help people in that way. So the podcast, I think, started in October or November of 2019. But I remember in July of 2019, I got on a call with my coach at the time, Brooke Castillo, and I was like, I've had 10 consults. And at the time, the consults were coming from Facebook ads and maybe these random events that I would go to. I did a lot of networking events, things like that. And the consults would come in, and I remember being like, I had 10 consults and none of them signed up with me, and I was crying, and it was this whole thing. And she was like, come back to me when you've done 100. This is not a problem. You haven't done enough of them. And it was really eye-opening for me, because by the end of the time where I cut consults off, because I no longer do consultation calls, the time that I cut that off, I had an entire spreadsheet of around 500 to 600 consultation calls that I had evaluated. What went well? What didn't go well? What am I going to do differently next time? I learned so much from those consultation calls, and it's crazy to me how much I put into them. And then once the podcast got going, when we got to episode 30 or 40, I saw a huge uptick in the number of consultation calls that I had. My Facebook ads were going to consultation calls, but they were also leading people to the podcast, because what was beautiful about the podcast is you guys get to know me, and you get to know my structure, and you get to know, do I like this person? Do I like the methods she's using? Because honestly, I don't want to waste y'all's time. At the time, I didn't want to waste anyone's time getting on a phone call with me if they didn't really believe in what I was talking about and when it comes to thoughts creating feelings. So I didn't really see the point of getting on the phone and having you waste your time, having me waste my time talking about thoughts creating feelings, if that can all be covered in a 10-minute podcast episode. So that was a beautiful thing. That was a beautiful tool so that you guys get to know and like me, decide if that's something that you want to do. And then we would still go down a consultation call, which at that point, it got to the point where they were not needed. And I had such an influx of consultation calls. There was no way I could sustain the consultation calls and my one-on-one clients. So I eventually phased those out. I really don't remember the phasing of those out or how that worked. I think I'm starting to remember. COVID hit, coronavirus hit, and everything exploded. The coaching industry exploded, and everyone's being faced with all their worst nightmares. People are losing their job. They have more time in the world, and they have to stay in their home with either their ex or someone they don't like, or they're going through relationship. Like, it was just, obviously, all of you know, we all lived it. It was a crazy moment for a hot second there. It still kind of is. We're still having a falling out of it. So, coaching and mental health at that point was so, so important. And I found when that happened, I had a lot of urgency about being able to help as many of you as I possibly could in that time frame. So I remember having a full client practice at around 20 to 25 people. And then I really couldn't take any more on because that was like 25 to 30 hours of just calls. And then there were the in-between session support and me still trying to do everything that goes along with like running a business on the back end and producing the podcast. So that wasn't working. And I had to figure out another way to help more of you. And that then became the group program, the Get Over Your Ex program. And that was my way of being able to serve as many of you as possible in the same time frame and be able to reach and impact more of you. And little did I know that the group program was actually going to be more efficient than the one-on-one, which was just so cool and amazing to find out because of the peer-to-peer support, which I had an inkling, but I wasn't entirely sure, if I'm being quite honest. So we'll talk all about that later. But that was really fun to look at and to work on. So yeah, we migrated to groups. I phased out consultation calls, and all of that happened about the same time in June or July, I think, of 2020. So then throughout the rest of 2020, I started phasing out one-on-one clients because I was seeing how well the groups were doing. There was at one point I had 2 groups going, and I didn't necessarily really like that, so I decided to only do 1 group at a time. And then my plan for 2021 was to completely phase out one-on-one clients and then migrate into launching 4 times a year so that I only have 1 group program going at one time, and I can invest all of my energy and attention and resources into that one specific group. And really refine and hone the process of getting over your ex. And also, I had spent a lot of time in the last year or two, like in 2019 and 2020, focused on marketing and learning how to sell what I do because it was so new and people were like, what is that? So I spent a lot of time in marketing, and one of the things that came up for me at the end of 2020 was I really wanted to be the best breakup coach. I want to be the best. If there was a coaching face-off, I want to fucking win. So all of 2021, I really wanted to, yes, I'm going through what we call launches, which is where we, I go through and I open and close a program. And so my main priority for 2021 was to get really good at launching and have it be easeful and fun and not stressful because I put a lot of pressure on myself. And then the second thing was to hone my coaching skill and my strategy and my process so that it was so rock solid, so tight that it was just the best of the best, the highest quality coaching you could ever possibly have. And so that is what I have been focusing on up until this point. So that's where we are now. We're about to migrate into 2022. I've got lots of plans for that. I don't know how much I'll talk about that here today, but I will eventually do an episode on it, of course, for you. Okay, so let's dive into the questions that Jenny, beautiful Jenny, and some other podcast listeners had around what we are doing here. So what were the kinds of questioning? The first question is, what were the kinds of questioning that you would do within your own thought work? Examples of boomerang thoughts and thought scripts. I'm curious to see how the questioning would be different compared to what we've been doing here related to breakups and getting over your ex. So the first thing that I want to say is that the questioning is very similar, if not exactly the same. I ask myself a lot of the same types of questions about all of my limiting beliefs. That's why it's so important to learn the skill of questioning and learning the skill of thought work, because it applies to all areas of your life. I think there's like different areas and topics that happened for me. I remember going through a period of like, there's not enough people who would want to work with me. I struggled a lot with what we call objections, money objections, which I have rephrased to money lies with my money coach, like lies that our brain tells us about how we don't have enough money to do what we want. My own limiting beliefs around how much I could create and how much value I could provide in the world. And then every single shift or change that has been made in my business requires me to question default thoughts and thought work. My change from one-on-one to group, my change from pricing, like my different prices. I started at a one-on-one price and then it went up and up and up. And then same thing like with the group, right? Feature changes to my programs, things that I like either added in or took away, all of that all required thought work along the way. But all of the questioning was like really the same types of questions based on like the work that I was doing. So some of the boomerang thoughts that I thought of when I was asked this question is, there aren't enough people who would want to work with me. Well, my thought script for that is there are more and more people going through breakups and no one can help them the way I help my brave hearts. I really fucking care about what I do, and I really, really fucking care about how we heal heartbreak. I've really made it my personal mission to show the world a new way of doing this, and I now know that this is my life's work. I know that there are going to be people who not only need what I have to offer, but truly desire and want to work with me in doing this differently. Another boomerang thought that would come up was no one knows I'm here. So in the very beginning, before I had a podcast, there would be lives. I would get on lives, you guys, on Facebook, and there'd be one person attending, and it was my ex, like at the time, it was my boyfriend, now my ex. Like he would make sure he would join so that someone was there. Sweet thing. And I remember the first 5-day training I did, I think there was maybe 20 people in the group. So I went through a period of like, no one knows I'm here. No one knows what I'm doing. And my thought script for that was, it doesn't matter. They're going to find me when it's right. And they're already looking for me. My only job is to help them find me. And the only way I can do that is by being visible, showing up day in and day out for them in any way, shape, or form that I know how. Another one was people can't afford to work with me. This was like a huge one that came up for me because it was one of my biggest barriers to coaching, to be quite honest. I had like a lot of money work that I did personally on myself. And I remember my first coaching program being so expensive and not understanding how to pay for it. But it was something I really, really wanted to do. So I guess when going into this, I just thought that other people would have those same problems. And some people do and some people don't. But I don't have to make it my problem. That is a thought error for them. And when I started to really recognize this and realize this, I came to a thought script of anyone can afford to work with me, and me saying that they can't only keeps them stuck. Me showing them how they can is actually helping them fight for their wildest dreams. Because every single person I work with then go out and create their wildest dreams. And who am I to say that they can't afford me? Like that, no matter what their circumstance is, me feeding that limiting belief for them does not serve them, and it does not serve me. Another one is this isn't available to me. This only works for others, meaning like creating a successful business like this that I remember I thought like at one point maybe I'd start this and it would like fall apart. So creating a successful business that lasted for a long period of time, like that's not available to me. This is only available to other people. And I came to the thought script of like, why not me? Again, if this is my life's work, right? I really, really care about my brave hearts, and I'm just never going to quit. This is what I was literally brought on this earth to serve brave hearts in this way I'm going to keep going regardless. And I remember I had this before my one-on-one practice filled. I read the book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And all of a sudden something shifted for me where I realized that I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I'm going to be doing breakup coaching for the rest of my life. And I love that. And if I'm going to be doing it for the rest of my life, like what am I willing to do to get there and to continue to like work towards it? I'm just never going to quit. So I just remember getting this place where I was like, I will deliver pizzas if I have to continue to be able to serve people in the way that I serve them to help them heal heartbreak. I'm not above any of that. And I think there's a lot of people who will disagree with that, and that's totally fine. That is what took the pressure off of me, was to realize like, I'm down to do this no matter what. I'll deliver pizzas, I'll go work at a coffee shop, whatever I have to do to fund Breakup Coach Dorothy LLC until it, kicks off. And even if something were to have happened and I have to like go work somewhere else for a while, I'm not above it. It's kind of interesting and funny. Like I just do this weird automatic thing where when I walk into establishments, I'm like, oh, I could work here. I could totally do this job. This looks like a job that I would like. There's so many different jobs that I can do that are different ways that I can provide value and make money. I don't need to, but I'm willing to. And like those are things that I could absolutely do to create the funds to fuel Breakup Coach Dorothy, because I think that's also something to be said. This is really important actually. And it goes towards a question that was asked by a different Braveheart. They mentioned, what is it? They mentioned, did you start as a side hustle before going full-time? And the answer is yeah, I absolutely did, because and I don't want to say this happens for everyone, because I'm sure there are people who just quit their job and are successful right away. That wasn't my experience. I needed money to fund Breakup Coach Dorothy. It's like a baby. You have to feed the baby before the baby's old enough to feed itself. And then even when the baby's old enough to feed itself, it doesn't mean it can feed you. And so it was really important to me that all of my money that I made from Breakup Coach Dorothy the first year was reinvested into the company. And even now, a very significant, like I think a larger chunk of money than people actually realize is actually filtered back into the business. It's not just like profit that I take home with me. It all goes back into the business. And I live it's really funny. I actually did the math, but in 2020, I think I lived off of $20,000 to $24,000 a year. And I had been like, I came from a job where I was making 80 grand a year. So that, like personally, that's what I lived off of, and my business made significantly more than that, but I funneled all that money back into my business. And I'm just being transparent, and some of you might not agree with that, and that's totally fine. That was my experience of it, and it doesn't have to be everyone's experience, but that's what I chose to do. Okay. So another question is, what do you do to keep yourself motivated, especially in the beginning if things got rough or when you were feeling like you've hit a plateau, if that's ever happened to you? So I never really thought about motivation. I don't really like motivation. I don't ever feel motivated. I feel inspired and empowered. I like those, but I think the driving force for me was committed. I learned a while ago when I was working towards my first 10K month in my business, I learned that I wanted to be more committed to becoming the person who has the goal versus the goal. So I'm committed to becoming the coach who had 10K months more than I was committed to creating the 10K in 30 days. I want to be the person who provided that much value more than the 10K, if that makes sense. So I spent more time figuring out, how do I become and be the coach who makes 10K months? And then I was fixated on creating the 10K. Like, yes, there's like a tangible piece of like, how many clients does that take to have 10K months? And how many do I need to sign within a certain time frame? But who did I need to be? How did I need to think? How did I need to feel to show up as if I was the person who had take 10K months already? And that has aided me every step of the way after that. So once I started launching, it was like, who do I need to be to have a full launch? And things like that. So I think it's much more about commitment than it is about motivation. How committed are you? And can you be more committed to your outcome than attached to it? And I actually did a podcast with Stacey Bayman. She is a life coach who helps life coaches make money. And she has a podcast called Make Money as a Life Coach. I think I'm on episode number 119, and I talk a lot about that commitment piece and what that looks like. So if you want to learn more about that, you could definitely check that out. The other thing that I'd say is I had to feel a lot of feelings. I go back through my own program over and over again and feel feelings all the time. I feel like ass 50% of the time. And the more I accomplish, the more I realize that it really truly is 50-50. I remember thinking like once I had my first 10K month and I had consistent 10K months, I'd feel proud and successful and amazing. And like that wasn't the case at all. I still felt like shit half the time. I also realized I found out about human design, and I found out that I'm a projector. And like when I'm not living within my design, I feel annoyed and bitter. And feeling bitter and annoyed was something I really struggled with in the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, and like periodically throughout launches in 2021 of feeling like bitter. And that would come up a lot when I'd get negative reviews on the podcast. And I'll talk about that later because she talks about like doubts and stuff. But it was hard for me to get negative reviews on the podcast because it's like I put so much time and effort and energy and money into what feels like a gift to other human beings, and for people to be so harsh in their thoughts and opinions about me was really hard for me to take in sometimes, because I'm like, you literally paid nothing to listen to this. No one's holding a gun to your head to say you have to listen to my podcast, but you have the audacity to leave such a terrible review about me when I'm trying to just help the world in my own unique way. It was hard for me. So feeling my feelings was a regular thing. So I'm not always feeling committed. I'm not always feeling empowered and inspired. Half the time I'm feeling like shit. And the last thing that I want to say about this question about, what do you do to keep yourself motivated is I think about all of you. I'm going to try not to cry, but Bravehearts, I think about y'all. And I think about what your biggest problems are and how I can solve them. I think about the 16-year-old version of myself that was struggling so significantly and wanted nothing more than help. I try to stay out of my brain when it comes to my work, and I spend more time in your brain and think about what are the problems, like what are the problems that my Bravehearts woke up with today, and what can I do to solve that for them and find a solution for them. So I think that is really important too, is I love my Bravehearts so fucking much. And I think about you guys more often than I think you might realize. And so are you thinking about your clients more often than you're thinking about yourself? All right. Another question. What were your biggest challenges and how did you overcome them? Did you have to overcome any doubt, discouragement from yourself or others? What about when you felt like things weren't going according to plan or the way you wanted to? So the first thing that comes to mind is when I first started all of this, I had some family and friends that were like, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you want to become a coach? It's flooded. You're going to have to compete against therapists. It's an unregulated industry. It's not worth it. It seemed really fluffy at the time. And I think I ran into a lot of discouragement before I ever even signed up, but I was so like in it, you guys. The changes that I had in my life for being a coach was mind-blowing for me, which also reminds me, like, that's one thing too. If you're getting started and you've never hired a coach, but you want to be a coach, I would highly, strongly suggest you get a coach. Like, how can you be a coach without having had a coach before, or like without going through some sort of coaching program to experience that? And maybe you've had shifts that felt like it. But it's such a different experience and I'll talk about this later because someone asked a question like kind of similar to this, but really I think about one of the biggest things that I had to overcome was like everyone else's thoughts and opinions about coaching. I remember my brother, I was kayaking with him one time and he was like, he described it as an MLM and all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm having a great time and I love my job more than any job I've ever had in my life, and I make more money than I've ever made in my life. So I really enjoy it. I think it's great, and I'm literally making an impact that I can see people with. Like, I can't see everyone's impact, or I can't see the impact that I'm making for everyone because of this podcast. Like, I can't see every single one of you unless you come to me and show me that I've made an impact. But I at least get to see an impact for the Bravehearts who I've helped. So like even just this year, I've helped maybe 100 people, and I can see the direct impact that I've created in their life. And to me, that's fucking amazing. So I think one of the biggest things is I really stuck to like my internal beliefs more than what other people were saying. Because now even like my dad's like, wow, you really made this into your own. I'm like, yeah, Dad, thank you. Thank you for that. I think the other thing too is I remember when I first got started, a lot of people told me I was like boxing myself in because I was doing breakup coaching. Best fucking decision I've ever made is to niche down. And you can totally be an amazing, really successful life coach who does general life coaching. I'm not saying that at all. But for me, I love having a main problem that I fix and that I talk about, and I'm talking to one specific person, and I've honed a process. You guys, like the process of getting over your ex, I fucking know it inside out and backwards. I think better than any other human being on this planet, I have figured it out. And I feel so confident in that. And I've helped so many people learn how to use it and do it. So I think being a breakup coach is the best. I love that I made that decision. And I really had no doubt about it, to be completely honest. I loved being a breakup coach. I thought it was really great. But I do have doubt and discouragement like all of the time. It comes up all of the time in a variety of different ways. It happens every change that I make, every decision that I make. It shows up. It's just an indicator that it's there, that I'm human, and it doesn't have to be a problem. But like it came up when I was filling my practice, when I was migrating from one-on-one to group, time, when I lost my job and my coaching business became my full-time gig, when I get the negative feedback on the podcast, right? Those negative reviews, I have a lot of doubt and I feel doubt and discouraged in those moments. And I think that shows up more as bitter. Like, how dare you? I gave you this free thing and you have the audacity to be such an asshole. Though that's how I get bitter and annoyed about it. And then I had a lot of doubt around launching and learning how to make that an easeful process and not making it so much, like not making it about pressure. And I think the biggest way that I overcome doubt and discouragement is, again, commitment. For me, I'm so committed to making Bravehearts' lives better. Like in general, that is what I'm here on this earth to do, is to help you get through a breakup, to help you heal your heart in a new way. And I'm so committed to that it makes all of this other shit worth it. Even when I'm feeling doubt and discouragement, I'm like, I've at least helped at least 10 humans heal their heart. And at this point, way more than 10, right? I've at least helped this many people with healing their heart. I'm going to continue to help one person at a time. I'm going to continue to help people as I can. And that is what I'm here on this earth to do. So we're going to do it regardless of whether doubt and discouragement is there. Another question is, how do you continue to come up with new ideas to make yourself stand out and be different when it seems like there's competition out there? And do you do anything specific when you're ready to take that leap, risk to do something new? I'm going to take a drink of water quick. Okay. So what I have to say about this is I don't come up with new ideas to make myself stand out. I actually come up with new ideas because I know what works and what doesn't work. And I think about my client and I'm focused on serving them, right? So I'm always finding and creating and trying to simplify for my client. So if I come up with something new, it's not because I did it because I want to stand out. Like, oh my God, I need to come up with something new so I stand out. I do it because it's helped a client. Like, it helped me and then I applied it to a client situation. And maybe like I test it, right? Like I test it with not only one client, but a couple of clients. And then it's helped and it's formulated a process. And then I go out to the world and I say, hey, this works and it is new because of X, Y, and Z. So I think that's my main thing is like my main goal is to solve my clients' problems. And to do that, I have to find ways that work, and what they've been doing isn't working. Hence why the no contact rule. If it's not working, here's why, and here's the solution to it, right? It's the desire. So I think that's really important. And then the second thing is I don't believe that there is competition out there. There's literally no one that can be me. I'm really good at what I do, and I'm sure there are other breakup coaches out there that are really good at what they do, but I know for certain that no one does it the way that I do it, and I know that no one else can be me. And I know what I provide my clients and how amazing it is, and so I really just stay in my own lane when it comes to that. I'm sure that there are a variety of other methods, there's other teachers, but I know that the people who are gravitated towards me get what they want when they work with me because I make sure of it. And yeah, I feel really good about that. And then you had a second question here was like, and do you do anything specific when you're ready to take the leap risk to do something new? And that comes along with something called intentional thought creation, which I learned from my business coach, Stacey Bayman. I spend more time thinking about what I want to choose to believe intentionally ongoing than I do in my default thought processes. And that is a huge thing. And it's something that I teach my clients inside of the Get Over Your Ex program of how do we think intentionally and how do we believe new things that we feel like we can't believe now? Because that's going to be the main thing. That's going to be the main thing that fuels the action that you take according to something new that you're doing, right? So you want to feel really empowered and excited and powerful and confident as you go through that, and intentionally thinking is going to be a part of that. Another question is, how were you able to separate your personal life from your business? Sometimes people let their personal life bleed into their business and affect their work/goals. So a lot of my personal life is my work life. I'm not as transparent as I've seen other coaches be, but I'm pretty transparent. I think the hardest part about that is like you get vulnerable and people are mean. But other than that, I don't really feel like that's a problem. Like anything I teach my clients, I've already done. Anything you heard on the podcast, I've already done. My personal life is my work life. I keep them integrated. That's really up to you. And there are times that I'm going through really thick feelings, right? Like where I'm feeling a lot of what we would call negative emotion, but it's all part of the process. And that's me just being human. And how could I be a coach to another human if I'm not human and I didn't experience those things? But when I am going through the thick of it, I really stay focused on solving your problems. I can serve my people. I can serve my brave hearts regardless of what's going on in my life because I can be more focused on your problems, which is so, so important. And then one of the last questions, we're almost out of questions, is if you could tell one thing to someone who is new to starting their own business, what would it be? I would say that your only job is to not quit. Your business will be successful as long as you don't quit. Literally, like if your brain wants to like play around with the idea of like, oh, this isn't going to be successful, it's not going to work. If you don't quit, it will work because you will be committed to finding a solution that works. So if you do not quit, you will arrive at your destination. And I think that's really important to like remember. It reminds me of all of the amazing people who were crazy before, had these crazy ideas, but they kept at it and they didn't quit when everyone else would have quit. And then now they're geniuses because they learned all these things and found this new invention. So your only job is to not quit. As long as you keep going, you'll be successful. And the other thing is like, this isn't true for everyone, but in my experience, sticking to one thing really helped me. Like I stuck to Breakup Coach Dorothy. Like I'm Breakup Coach Dorothy, and I've stuck to this, and I can't say that this works for everyone because there's people who change stuff all the time and they're really successful. But for me, being Breakup Coach Dorothy really worked for me, and I love it. And I love that I've stuck with one thing. People know who I am and what I do and how I can help you. And I think it's because I stuck to one thing. But again, people are successful out there who've changed what they do, and that's not a problem. And then, she also mentioned, and of course, any advice you think would be useful, especially for those who don't have any background in business, or don't think business is their forte. I guess if you're thinking about opening a coaching practice, get really good at coaching. If you feel confident in your coaching abilities, it's going to be easier to sell your coaching, especially when you know what the outcome is that you provide to your people, and then you go out and you've provided it to multiple people. So getting experience and practicing your coaching, being a good coach is probably like step number 1. And then step number 2 is learning to become a really good CMO of your business. I say CMO, that's probably not the right. Chief Marketing Officer. Yes, it is. Chief Marketing Officer. Get really good at marketing what you do, helping people understand what is the problem that you solve and why can you solve it for them. That was an amazing thing for me. I know my people's problems inside out and backwards, and I know how to solve them. And then another question was, how important do you think participating in business coaching programs has been to your success, and would you recommend that to others? Okay. So this really depends on what you think a business coaching program is, because I don't think I was ever a part of a business coaching program, but that might not necessarily be true because I did a lot of coaching programs that were centered around my business, but it was a lot of mindset. Like I never really learned like business strategy, or like I never did a program on accounting or things like that. I think like I did the life coach school certification, and they spent a year with me helping me set the groundwork to a business, but it wasn't necessarily like a business. Maybe it was. Maybe it would be considered a bit, because it was literally like they had 2 different routes at the time. You could either get better at your coaching skills, or they would help you set up your business. And I went with that one because I knew nothing about business. So I did do that, and I thought that was very useful and beneficial. I have a money coach who is all mindset, but the mindset behind the money was also very important. I did Claire Pelletro's Facebook ads course, which was also very beneficial, but that's not necessarily like a business program, right? It's a Facebook ads course. And then I did 200K master. I did 2K for 2K with Stacey Bayman. And then I did 200K mastermind with Stacey Bayman. Both of those for me were great. And I took so much away from it, and I learned so much. Not necessarily like some of it was about business. Like I remember doing an evaluation of the front end of my business versus the back end of my business, which was super important for processes and systems. Another resource that's really good for processes and systems is my friend Lauren Cash. She's also very like an expert in that area. And then I've also been most recently, I'm in Projector Playground, which could also be considered a business coaching program, because we're talking about business and how do I set up my business being a projector from Human Design. So I guess with all of that being said, I think it's really important to participate in business coaching programs when you have a business. Obviously, if you don't have a business, maybe it's not necessarily like the most important thing, but if you are thinking about running a business, I think coaching programs in general are so important. I will never not have a coach ever, period, and I will never not be going through some sort of coaching program. I'm also in Coaching Masters with Lindsay Dotzloff, which has also been super beneficial because that's been me, again, honing my skill as a coach, being the best breakup coach, understanding my strategy and my process and all of that. Technically not a business coaching program. Like we don't talk about business in there. We talk about coaching. But that is also very, very fucking important. Like, it's important to me that I am the best coach I can be for my clients. When they come into my program, they are getting high quality master coach coaching. Like, I want to be the best, and I'm going to be the best all of the time in my programs so that my people get what they came for. So I think it's really important to be in business coaching programs and in coaching programs in general. And then also, like, if you are a non-business coach, I would also highly recommend being in coaching programs that are non-business, like marriage coaching, sex coaching, breakup coaching, going through other coaching programs that aren't necessarily geared towards business. If you're trying to sell a non-business coaching program, is obviously going to be really important so that you can see their process. You can see, how those areas impact other areas of your life so that you can help your clients understand that. And of course, I wouldn't just like do a marriage coaching program if you have no marriage problems, but like, I love doing weight loss, or not weight loss, but like nutrition programs and relationship programs and inner voice. I love integrating inner voice facilitator stuff and human design stuff. So like, I'm dabbling in a lot of different areas, but I think that's important to just your personal human development and growth. But it also always, I take everything I've ever invested in and apply it back to my business and my clients. Okay, I think that's all of the questions. My ex did come in and ask who helped you and supported you all the way through, and I thought that was really funny because, not the ex that you guys know, but my most recent ex, and he was around when I signed up for the life coach certification and was therefore poor, and I remember him paying for a lot of things and being super supportive, and when I would do my first lives and he would attend and no one else was there, and all of that. So he was super helpful for that. And I think it's funny that he asked that question. But yes, I have a lot of people who helped me and supported me throughout my journey of being a breakup coach. And some were paid coaches, some were friends and family, some were coach colleagues. That's what I've loved the most about becoming a coach, is like I love having other coach colleagues to talk to about all this stuff. So anyways, that was a long episode, but that was the journey to starting Breakup Coach Dorothy LLC. That's kind of where we're at right here and right now. If you found this useful, I am so glad. And if there's anything else that I can do or any other questions that you might have, please let me know. I am all about coaching. There are not enough coaches in the world, and I'm so excited if you're thinking about becoming a coach or if you started your coaching business, or if you're starting any business. Right now seems like such a beautiful time to do this, and how amazing is it that we have the internet to help us reach all the people and help all the people that we possibly can. All right. I love you all. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you later. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.